All right, call the meeting to order at 7:01. We are missing Liam, unfortunately.
Do we know anybody that's on there, Lisa? Can we tell if it's in there?
Participants,
Just one,
just
two.
me.
Okay. Casey gets on there.
So Liam's not on there yet, unless he tries to get on. Audience of citizens, we don't have any here, so we'll dispense with that. Approval of minutes, April 26th meeting. Anybody, I read them, I'm not 100% sure of their contents.
Yeah, I didn't see anything.
They look okay to me.
Yeah. I'll make a motion.
I'll second motion.
April 26th.
Tom made the motion to approve them, and seconded by Barry. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Contrary minds, nay. Business. We'll defer to,
Okay, I'll get started with this. The Mattabesset District invoice distribution this year, as you know, again, we paid the entire bill. We wired the $2.27 million. Now it's quite a bit more than we had originally anticipated. Likely to go up again by next year, from what I understand. The invoices, we paid about $1 million. Kensington's gonna be paying a little bit over $1 million. In Worthington, when they actually pay, it would be around $350,000. Worthington, they asked me to withhold a portion of the Berlin pump station, what do you call it? Their
Middletown Road.
No, the Berlin pump station share, because they had some questions, but they haven't given me the questions, so I really don't know what the questions are. So, but that's only about $22,000, so we withheld it.
How long ago was that request? Yeah, happened a week ago, a month ago?
No, it's at
6
the
months
end
ago?
of, it's at the end of the, I sent out a letter July 11th. They also know about it, because I talked to them by phone.
Anyway, so that distribution was made. We did make the payments, and as I said, KFD's check came in fairly quickly, so we had no problem with that. We still have some outstanding funds due to Worthington Fire District. Item 4.2, emergency water and sewer services. Actually 2 weeks ago, the town council went ahead and approved the emergency water sewer services. We had a contract that expired, and we actually made the contract for now 2.5 years. It goes from July 1st of this year to the December 31st, 2024. It makes more sense because traditionally it's been a year, but it's problematic to have it in 1 year. It's a lot of extra work. The two bidders, and so there will be primary and secondary, or Butler, who's previously done it, and Earth Contractors, who have previously done it. So this is pretty good. We're pretty happy with both companies. So this works out really well. So Butler will be the primary, Earth will be the secondary. That is what Butler's busy with.
Butler and, was it Earth?
Earth Contractors.
Butler, I forgot.
Yeah, Butler's out of Portland. DWSRF loan status. We thought we were at the close of completion, and then found out that the approval was the approval for the project to go forward to the AG's office for review and the treasurer's office, which means there's another month and a half of review status there. So we're about 2 weeks into that. So we're hopeful that we can get approval sometime by mid-August. Now, Burns Construction, we were concerned that Burns Construction wasn't going to hold their bid. Our engineer, Lennard Engineering, basically through a letter that I sent out, asked them to hold the bid until the end of August, and they were gracious enough to allow for that. So they're holding their bid till the end of August, but they're going forward with a lot of the materials to make sure that they can have that order in place because of the supply chain issues. Piping, for instance, on ductile iron is probably about 25 weeks lag time. The HDPE, the high density polyethylene piping that will go underneath the Mattabesset, that's about 16 weeks. So relatively speaking, most of the work, if it gets done, it'll be done probably November, December, hopefully the first part of next year. I think that we'll be able to do most of it during the winter. So we'll see how that goes, but that's where we stand right now with the loan. There is and I hesitate throwing out a number, there's also a grant associated with the loan. We won't know that until we get the formal commitment on the loan. 4.4, New Britain meter. This is sort of an oddball. Sometime in January, we started getting strange invoices from New Britain. Partial, I say partial because they're a lot lower than normal numbers. And so then they let us know later that their meters that on Christian Lane were problematic. For some reason, they were not registering properly. And we suspected it might have something to do with our check valve. So we went ahead and removed the check valve just downside from the meters. And they agreed, and at the same time, they replaced the meters in the middle of May. So what they did is they billed us for an average from January to May. It was about $107,000. I thought it was a fairly decent deal because I think the reality is that the money would have been a little bit more if they had actually metered it. But anyway, so we paid the invoice and they fixed the meters. We took the valve out. So right now it's functioning. We haven't got our first billing yet, but we'll be looking forward to getting our first billing. See how it works out. 4.5, Kensington Road. Now this is, if you recall, you gave me permission a while back to move forward on this. Kensington Road, there's a number of homeowners on that road who would like to have public water. And of course, we end our services at Elton Road. The crossover between Elton Road and Kensington Road is where we take a turn.
This is out here in Charles
In that same area, I met with about a half a dozen homeowners. We hired WMC to do an evaluation of the cost. The cost to do the entire Kensington Road from that point on to the other end, I can't remember the street, but where it goes 90 degrees off towards Pierre Bunderup's place, is about $2.2 million. So that is totally unreasonable cost. We do have a whole bunch of numbers. We're still waiting for some more information from a number of homeowners with poor water quality. The water quality, generally speaking, is hardnesses have been over 1,000, and typically hardness is considered over 150 are considered high. So this is considerably high, and their sulfate standards have been sulfate standards around 250. Those are well over 1,000. So there's a number of homeowners with quality right now. So we're still waiting for some more quality information. I did speak to the state. The state said that they would give us a loan. They have given the loan to private wells in areas where public water could be expanded. And this would be as long as the water quality was a problem. Now, some of the homeowners gave me water quality results that basically had bacteria. Well, bacteria is not really an issue per se from contamination. It's more of an issue with construction, well construction. So I don't know that would really fly, but so I'm looking for more chemistry data from those homeowners before we move forward. I also suggested, because the mayor was there, that we may want to do this in a phased approach. For the first maybe, I'm just saying, throwing this out, maybe the first dozen homeowners that potentially want to have the service provided, we would go that far rather than moving all the way down the.
Well, how many people are involved?
Well, about 6 or 7 showed up on this.
For you to extend it, how far, how many people are going to be involved?
Oh, I don't know. That depends on what the water quality reports out too. And then also, Mr. Ciarcia, I don't know if this is still going, but on the opposite side of the street, he had a proposal for 7 or 8 lots. So that was.
Those are just lots at the moment.
Yeah, for that.
Not actual homes.
No.
We had a proposal.
So what we would be looking at, and we couldn't float the whole thing, we would have to have an assessment too, so
So this would be the same as extending it like we've done all over town for the past 100 years or so.
Yeah, the DWSRF loan
where
would
we
give
have
us
a
the
first
option,
estimated assessment, a
would-
second estimated
would
assessment.
give us the
take
option
away.
to do the project, and then we would make assessments of each of the homeowners along the way.
We would not be
Yeah, there'd be some tap to pick up though. Inevitably, because we have administrative
When those
costs.
people built those homes, bought those lots, they knew what the water was.
Oh, no, they didn't know.
Who put the wells in?
Well, they put the wells in at the same time, but you're right, they, whenever they built it, they found out what the water quality was. But,
Why would you even consider building a house knowing you're gonna have a well without knowing the quality of the well?
well,
You're
the
right.
water quality is still, it's feasible to treat, but it's a crazy process to treat, right?
Well, yeah, they probably all got a salt brine tank in their basement.
Well, they have an ion exchange, a cation exchange, usually a softener is one of the ion exchange units. Then they need a pH adjustment, a carbon filter, and then they all have to discharge it, but they can't discharge it into the septic system, they have to discharge it into a dry well because the septic system can't hold the hydraulic. Yeah, I hear you, and I don't know what to tell you about that. I wasn't here, and neither do I. I'm only looking at the circumstances as they are now. You don't wanna help them, that's fine. I'm just telling you that the only way to help them is in order to provide potable water.
Well, in the past, if somebody had a problem with wells or didn't like their water pressure or had issues with hardness or something in the well, that's when we would actually, we, the town, would not necessarily pick up the tab on any of it. We would actually go for the first estimated assessment. Well, first off, we go out and ask them how many people within this area are willing for the extension to pay for that, whether it's 5 people, 10 people, or whatever. And then if there was a plurality, then we would go out to the first estimated assessment, second estimated assessment, and then if they kept on doing that, then it would go to a construction, and then it would each be assessed that amount of money for that extension. We, the town, would pay for it. Now, if they, when we did the townwide water system and extended that 16-inch main, that was actually demanded from the state because there were too many houses down in my neighborhood, unfortunately, that were getting water from, say, they were contaminated through Silver Lake, and the same thing from
I
dropping
don't think
sewage
there's any
into it.
mandate.
Townwide water system was
No, it
was
wasn't
actually, that was put
It
through
was
for
a
a
design,
reason.
but it wasn't mandated.
There's a reason for it. It wasn't just picked out of a hat.
We never mandated anybody, I worked for the state health department, so no.
I know
There was no
the
mandate.
sewer was down there deliberately because of people who were
Well, the sewer is a different
discharging
issue.
to the lake.
Yeah, that's an entirely different issue.
Well,
Well, anyway, I
cross
can't
those
answer your
bridges
question,
when we
yeah.
have to.
Yeah, well, the bottom line is, and this is where you're going at it too, is that, we need to know what the financing is. And you're absolutely correct, because the thing is, at that point, we have to decide whether it's worthwhile to do. And eventually, frankly, from my perspective, although probably when it will be into my tenure, is Orchard Road over on Elton Road, that the water line goes up the street a little on Orchard Road, and then eventually it should be looped. But, you know, we're talking about many, many years now. And I think that some of these homes were built before Elton Road, and the wells came in, so I don't know that that was even the circumstance where they could provide them with public water. But anyway, a lot of other issues as far as timing. So we're still looking at that.
When people purchase a house and they have a home inspection, is water quality part of the home inspection?
Sure, but it's also a very minimal test that's done, portability test. So I don't know, again, I don't know what these people did when they first put the homes in. I have no idea. That's one of the reasons why we
It's
did the
hard and
quality.
it's my problem.
Well, the only way we're gonna get a loan on this is if the justification exists in the quality of the wells. If the quality of the wells is such that it's not really a big deal, they're not gonna provide us with funds to do it, so the town has to make a decision if they wanna spend their own funds. anyway, that's where we stand with that one. Not very far, because I'm still waiting, and I think I met with them in early July.
This subject matter was brought up months ago, but some people haven't
Yeah, but we hired-
responded.
No, well, yes and no. WMC did some analysis in terms of the cost, but they didn't have all the water quality data, so I'm still waiting for some of that. Now,
I'm still waiting some answers from them.
we reached out to 4.6. And Type Bond is a consultant. We reached out to the consultants to take a look. You recall one of the issues came up with Baxter Avenue meter station. So they were going to look at the meter station, look at the quality of the metering capability, and see if there's functional problems associated with the piping there, and also potentially look at whether we could salvage any of the data from there in order to show the I&I content. So we reached out to them. They have not really, other than meeting once, they haven't really replied back to us. So we're waiting. If they don't want to do a study, we will reach out to another consultant. So far,
This is
giving him,
This is in conjunction with the difference of
With the
what
Bax-
Bennington says and
yes,
what we
the
say.
Baxter Avenue
So we
meter
have
readings.
conflicting engineers with their opinions
Right.
going
So, well, it depends. We'll have to see what happens. He did meet with us, and I thought he did a pretty good job summarizing the meeting, but hasn't contacted us since. So
out. If somebody lives in town with the main type, is that what they would?
I don't know. 4.7, a discussion with water and sewer service for 235. Yeah, this has been a problem for me because I'm consuming a lot of time and not getting anywhere. Historically, the town has some strange development processes. This used to be the old EIS office, and it's Fosdick. It's a company, I don't even know what they make, but it's off of Worthington Ridge. If you call Worthington Ridge comes over towards, and it's been cut off by Burlington.
They don't make anything during like a shipping.
I don't know, anyway. The
I know
point
the
of
guy
it
who was
is,
the president.
the point of it is that this company here is now operational. These two homeowners would like, they have a private well, they have a septic system, want to have connections. This is brownstone, cobblestone. And then there's another homeowner here on Weathersfield Avenue. Weathersfield, I didn't bring the map, but there's a section of Weathersfield Avenue that two segments, road, two segments that don't have any water and sewer. They're like, they're pieces. They come off of here, they come off of here, but they're just segmented. And I don't know what to do. Now, when I first came here, that was on the list to make that connection. But it's grown successively lower on the list because we've had other bigger issues to contend with. And so this poor homeowner, I don't know what to tell her. I don't think that there's an option for her. They get water, this company gets water from over in this section, and also the sewer goes over here. We have a sewer pumping station right over here. It would be totally impractical for her to make any kind of connections. I just don't see it. The only suggestion I was going to have to her is that if she were to, and this is where I'm going with you guys, is basically if she were to work out some kind of an easement, backdoor easement to Brownstone, that may be acceptable and potentially hook up to water and sewer in the Brownstone cul-de-sac. Not the best way in terms of doing business because it's so odd. You know, typically when we do business for water and sewer services, they're in the front, they're really easy, they're realistic, just like this one is. But this one, and then somehow we missed the boat the town missed the boat actually, because this was a two-phase operation, and I don't know if you gentlemen were here at the time, but the first phase was up to here, and somebody who did the second phase never thought about those folks over here. Basically, it would have been that would have been the opportunity to put an easement under one ownership. It would have been easily done, put in, had it available for these two people to also hook up. And also for this other homeowner down the other end on this road. I just bring this up for discussion because I really don't know what the solution is here. I mean, I've suggested that they hire maybe as a consultant, a smaller firm basically to give them some suggestions because I can't spend a lot of time trying to be their consultant and working on this project because.
And so the company here is getting their fee across this property.
Yeah, that's all their property, and they actually own this whole segment over here, right to Weathersfield Road, which is interesting to me because I don't know if it's ever developable. But yeah, their main comes off, this one doesn't clearly show it, but yeah, here it is. This shows the main coming off here and the connection to the building. Sewer line, I don't know, the sewer line doesn't really show, but the sewer line must be coming down here too because our pump station's down there, so it would make sense.
Is that in our sewer area?
Yeah, this is Worthington Ridge, and these are our customers.
Worthington Ridge Extension, which is on the east side of the road.
Yes, that's all I heard.
Some of the stuff.
I don't know if any of you were here when this occurred. Take a look at it, Mary.
Some of the stuff over here is part of website.
No, that's pretty far from Webster Heights.
Do the grades work for sewer or the enforcement?
I think so. I mean, they could put in an injection pump as well. I thought trying to work out, what I'm getting at is, and what I need you to understand is that if we come up with a solution, it may be a little bit of a jury-rigged solution. It's not gonna be your normal, regular
It's not gonna be a
process.
straight out extent.
I mean, I will bring it back to the table, but I thought I'd rather bring it to you at this point to let you know that this is potentially the only way to put a solution together.
My recommendation is that you give these people the name of a consulting firm that can handle their issue.
Yeah, I
And bring it back to us.
Well, I gave him the name of a person which I think could
And
do some
therefore,
field work for me.
yeah. Because,
I don't see a clear clear option here that makes good sense.
Like he said, is what kind of grade do they have?
Well, I'm less
Even if
worried
they go
about the
with
grade,
easement out
but
the
it wouldn't
front.
be gravity. I don't think it would be gravity per se because it's only one home, that would be a little bit more problematic. I think the only solution to me is getting an easement going back into
the short,
downstone.
point of the shortest distance.
Yeah, exactly. It's a known rather than
And now you gotta convince somebody to let you go.
an unknown. Right. And if they don't want to, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
And they're requesting connections.
Yes. And nowadays, and part of this is driven by the fact that when you have a septic system repair, it's not cheap. You're talking about $20,000-$30,000 in some cases, and so
Replace them.
it gets very expensive, and so it's almost cheaper if they can get public sewer and public water.
They're all the old versions of septic systems that they did was not very engineered. Nowadays are better. How long have they been looking for?
Well, they've been dealing with me most of this year.
Most of this year.
Yeah, and I get to the point where I just say I can't do anymore because it takes me so much more time.
First of all, at the moment, we can't make the decision to give them.
Oh, no.
So,
No, I'm
they're
bringing
gonna
it,
have-
I'm bringing this up more as a discussion item because what I'm getting at is that when the solution comes in, it's not gonna look like a normal solution. Not normal. So we have to make some decisions. I told each homeowner, I says, when you deal with the consultant, what we should be dealing with is sort of an outline of what you need to do to get a cost estimate, so before you make any kind of commitments, because you don't wanna go down the road spending a lot of money thinking you got a commitment, and we're not gonna give it to you.
Stuff in advance.
You guys wanna take a look at it?
All right.
Okay, if I can, let me go to 4.8, this got a little bit of explanation. we weren't technically involved, but I got involved by the sanitarian who asked me to make some comments. Kensington Fire District had a request from some homeowner who wanted to put in a well for irrigation purposes. My argument, and I remember being at the health department years ago, we would not allow generically to anybody to put in irrigation wells or any wells, but there was an exemption process. However, the state came back and said, no, go ahead and put it in. So I wrote back to them, I says, I disagree with you. And so they said, well, okay, so we're gonna put it at the AG's office and ask the AG to evaluate it. And so the AG, I don't know what regulation changes have occurred over the years that I've been out there, but the thing is, the AG may decide it's acceptable or not acceptable, but I talked to a few utilities and I said, well, what are you doing? He says, well, we put it on our rules and regulations. And it makes sense to me because if you put it in your rules and regulations, then I don't want, this is the way I feel about this, is I don't want everybody drilling irrigation wells in our system. There's two problems to that. One is undermines the financial position that we've taken. And two, that now it's an obligation to go out and inspect it to make sure that it isn't interconnected. If they have a poor water quality, if it gets interconnected, it goes back into our system and it contaminates our system. And it causes us a lot more headache than it's worth. So, and plus, and I get to this point later, is we would actually offer an irrigation meter so that the homeowners are actually saving the sewer fees, which in some cases it's much cheaper. And you know nowadays a well is probably going to cost you minimally $5,000, $6,000. That if you compare that to water usage, you're talking about a long time
Before you get your money back,
Yeah. So anyway, I bring this up for that reason, and also suggest that one of the reasons that we should do is make go forward with a hearing. And I had a proposal to add a section in our rules and regulations, and they're very simplistic. And I thought it was a little bit more encompassing than just an irrigation well, so I suggested this. And in section 4P, that doesn't really make a difference what section you're really looking at. It's just another element into the regulations. Item 1, irrigation wells are not allowed within the Berlin Water Control Commission distribution system. Any existing well, regardless of usage, should not be connected to the Berlin Water Control water distribution system, period. Item 2, private wells are not allowed within the Berlin Water Control distribution system also. Now this is, existing wells are grandfathered, so that isn't an issue. Item 3, certain geothermal wells can be drilled within the Berlin Water Control water distribution system on a case-by-case basis. Berlin Water Control must be included in the review and approval of any geothermal well. And the rationale for that is this. Geothermal wells, when they were first put in, were basically holes with tubes going down into the holes, and you'd have to drill a well and put the tubes down there. If you didn't like the tubes, you could take the tubes out, then you have a well. You could use it for irrigation, you could use it for potable, nobody would ever know the difference. But the geothermal wells, when they became a little bit more sophisticated, they developed geothermal wells that basically were refilled with clay. They call it a thermophilic clay. The clay basically it goes in around the tubes. It actually causes it to release the heat faster to the ground itself. So in my case, you can cut the tubes off, you don't have a well. All you have is a hole that has been refilled again, so you don't have the potential for contamination or for potential uses for irrigation or potable water usage. So I think on a case-by-case basis, the geothermal wells could be allowed. So I think this would probably be the best way to handle this situation. In the town charter, under our section where we run the water control, specifically says that anybody interconnected with our water and sewer then has to abide by the rules. So if this is within the rules and regulations, then they have to abide by that. So I think, so regardless of what the state decides, I think we should cover this.
Well, that's my question. If the state grants it, then how can we go against it?
They can grant it, but they can grant it on an exception basis, or they can grant it it doesn't have to be on a generic basis. This overrides their rules because it says that you would have to adhere to our rules, which are more stringent than theirs because they don't have the rules and regulations that each utility has. See what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Thoughts?
I just don't wanna get into a
Can I
messy
see the rules?
dogfight
Yeah.
if somebody,
Oh, I don't
Wants
think it's
to
gonna be a
challenge
dogfight.
well, if somebody wants to do it, and then you say, no, we can't, and they find out the state approved it, why are we?
Because we have rules and regulations.
You know, I've often been told, anything,
I'll be very honest.
any construction that goes on, okay, in the state, now, the town of Berlin can have their rules in construction, but as long as the builders meet the state requirements, and the state requirements, of construction overrule the community.
Well, there's a hierarchy.
Yeah,
You can take the federal law, and the state law can have supersede the federal law because if it's more stringent. And local law can supersede the state law if it's more stringent. And if it is, in this case, it would be more stringent.
We couldn't do the opposite, right? If it was the opposite scenario, we could write it to say,
You're right.
hey, private wells are
Yeah,
okay.
if
Right.
if the
said no.
state law
Right.
supersedes the
You're
local.
absolutely
then-
correct, right. Yeah, the opposite doesn't hold true.
hey, you know, no, it's not gonna be any skin off my back, so,
No, and I think
Write it
it's,
in.
the only thing that we have to pay,
Yourself.
we have
because,
to pay a couple $100 anyway just to have it printed in the paper, that we have the law, and then, they hold a public hearing at the next,
so this was brought up by
Monthly.
Kensington, right?
Well, the irony here is this, Kensington was asked, I won't give you a name, but somebody in Kensington was asked, they said, oh, yeah, sure, go ahead and do it. And I said, and the local health department asked me, I says, I don't think so. I says, and then, when I looked into it, I found out that, you know, years ago, when I was directly involved in this process, now there's nobody that really got involved with it. They have an exemption process that never applies. So the guy is supposed to ask for an exemption, and the health department said, no, you don't need to, put it in. Well, I pulled off the exemption off the website, and it clearly says that the utility, if you're connected to the utility, you're supposed to be connected to the utility, and you don't need to have an exemption. And then the director of health has to sign off because the well can't be located in an area that's not consistent with public health code. And some people in town are not gonna have that requirement. So in other words, they're allowing for exemption, but however, if a farmer was connected to us, let's say somebody like Christophic, that's a good example. Now, if he were to come in and ask for an exemption, I'd give him the exemption because he's got 40 acres in back end property. I don't need.
Here did it,
He could,
Sunny Border had it.
yeah, but he's not connected to us.
Yeah, he's not connected.
But anyway, the point of it is you could then grant the exception without, you know, and then you'd have to have him do a cross connection survey, which now requires our staff to do more work, but, you know, it's doable. But if you let everybody put in their own wells, then our staff's gonna be inundated with a lot of cross connections and then a lot of potential problems out in the distribution system. Something that we would try to ignore, so.
I think it kind of,
If we put it toward Berlin water control, but Kensington and Worthington people still want to drill a well.
They can do their own. They can, if the
Well,
state comes out and says they can do it, they
water
can do it.
because of their well, I'm not gonna be happy.
Well, you get a point, but I was gonna go the ordinance route, but I was concerned with the ordinance route, doing it collectively for the entire town.
Well,
I-
they expect us to pay the Madawaska district collectively for the
I
entire
hear you,
town.
I hear you, I really don't know what the answer, I'll give you the answer on that.
I think I'm thinking about the wording.
Well,
of this.
I definitely can't make rules and regulations for them. Now, supposedly, if they do go ahead and do it, let's say, for instance, Kensington comes back and says, oh, well, we'll continue to do this. Then maybe I need to go to an ordinance process and then shut it down for the entire town rather than individual. I don't know. I right now, I don't really wanna go beyond our borders at this point in time. In Worthington, I don't know, they're very small, they really don't, they don't expand, and,
We don't know if their bylaws, rules and regulations
No, I
contain
don't believe
anything
they-
about
No, I
private
don't
well
believe they
drilling.
address it either. They haven't had to address it.
They assume that Berlin will take care of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think Berlin better at least
We should at least take care of our
set a
own.
precedent and
Right.
begin.
precedents. The only thing I'm thinking about here is when it's not allowed within the Berlin water control distribution system. I'm wondering if it's, maybe needs to be defined as being within the water control served area.
No, that's different.
That's different.
Yeah, that's different, because that's maybe somebody who's not even connected to us. Right?
The way it's worded, it's like worded at they,
Well, I'm only worried about our distribution system right now. I'm not worried about
not allowed,
facilities and places I don't know about.
so then how does it be connected to our system? It's not.
Ran by legal.
Irrigation, it's not.
No, I haven't run this by legal, but I don't think I have to. Because we don't do everything. I did run it by legal.
We don't do anything.
Somehow that didn't come out right. I guess.
Sometimes we put on our big boy pants and
I
do things.
would lock
We don't always use legal advice, let's put it that way. That's not gonna come out good, I'm afraid.
It all depends on the opinion of the.
So it'd be a 15-minute public hearing prior to
The August meeting, and we would post it twice in the Berlin Citizen, so to meet the requirements for the posting, and I think it'd be worthwhile doing it in my own mind. Now, this turns out to be, now, you have to be cognizant of it too. Everybody around here has heard, and it's true, I mean, it's being borne out. This year tends to be extremely dry, so far, anyway. Drier than normal. It hasn't been as dry as 2016, which was fairly dry. But however, if you're seeing a pattern here, we're seeing patterns of extremely dry periods. And when it is wet, it's extremely wet. So we're hitting the highs in both cases, the highs and lows.
The extremes are getting.
Yeah, so for the dry periods though, I could see people getting, miffed, and we're still a fairly affluent town. Some folks put a probably $5,000 well in, and not blink of an eye, and not a big deal. But I don't want a whole bunch of these going in now regularly and then being interconnected and then creating problems for us.
So there's
That's my-
potable and non-potable?
Potable and
Respect-
non-potable, and the irrigation wells, most people are not gonna they have
Yeah.
difficulty maintaining their own wells, let alone an irrigation well, separate well. And then, of course, we run into quality. Quality doesn't necessarily mean just because you drill a well, you're gonna have good quality, so. that's
Yeah,
how
but
it
if you're
works.
drilling a well for irrigation, all you're doing is putting the good calcium water right back into the dirt.
Well, it depends on what you have, I mean, and what the problem is.
Iron, whatever.
Yeah, and then.
That's just
and then-
water for grass.
Right.
They're not hurting anything.
Right.
All right.
Hey, yeah. I'm not gonna be putting in a well, so I won't even contest this.
So I got a neutral.
You got a neutral.
You gotta move.
We need a motion.
Okay, we need a motion.
Make a motion.
Moved by Barry,
Second,
second. Al, second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Not to remind, nay. Okay.
so for the August meeting,
The August meeting, we're gonna have a little change.
Yes.
we don't want to take the month of August off.
No,
Everybody can come.
because I can drive.
Does that
Well, it doesn't have to be in
posted in the
August,
paper?
it could be September if you guys want it.
Oh, yes, September's still.
How about that?
I'm sorry,
Al? Can we get you to come back in September?
September,
Is soccer season over by then?
No, it begins probably.
Starts ramping
probably
up.
start.
Yeah.
Yeah, that starts ramping up for fall season.
So you wanna shoot for September 1st, is that consensus? I mean, September meeting,
September the first.
September meeting. Yeah.
September meeting, okay with me.
you want a
Okay.
motion?
Yeah.
Motion to cancel the August meeting and then the September meeting.
Yeah. Motion
I'll second
to
it.
cancel the August one.
Who was made, Garcia, okay,
I second it.
Barry.
All in favor of cancel,
cancel.
Yep.
August,
not to remind.
Public hearing September.
Public hearing. So
Well,
now
the public hearing and,
we just cancel the preceding motion, now we'll make the motion.
in water control meeting is canceled for August, correct?
Water control canceled
Yeah.
for August. Hold the public hearing
and the water
prior
control meeting.
to the regular monthly meeting.
Okay.
So now we'll entertain a motion to hold this in conjunction with the September meeting. We'll change it to the.
I think it's all incorporated.
Yeah, the two of them. All right, so now we'll have to see who wants to move down.
I'll move that, yeah. I'll second it, okay.
Very second, all in favor, aye.
Aye, but
Contrary minds, nay.
Okay,
It's been modified over to the September meeting.
Now, this is a little bit of an interesting story, but I need to bring back to you.
It's not done.
It's another credit. It's basically a homeowner, apparently over 98 Crystal Falls Way.
Is this an additional new business?
Yes, item 49.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to put that on the agenda.
49, make a motion to add it.
I second it.
What's the name?
98 Crystal
All in
Falls
favor,
Way.
98 Crystal.
Contrary minds.
Okay, what you
Yeah.
said?
Yeah.
The homeowner called up and was very concerned. Basically, her young son had opened up the faucet on the outside of the house roughly around 6 o'clock in the afternoon. She didn't discover it until the following morning, about 8 a.m., when she noticed the flooding underneath her deck and area around the backyard. So she was hoping that we would give her credit, and I did some numbers, and it's not a large credit, but it was something in the vicinity of about $33 to $50, depending upon how you evaluate the number of hours and the actual flow coming out of the. I've used like 5 gallons per minute as a flow, but I don't know if I'm a little on the low side. I might give her something a little higher. I will test it out at home and see how long it takes to fill up a bucket, 5 gallon bucket. and
I
see if
wouldn't waste your water to do that.
I'll still use the water, that's not a problem. But basically, yeah, just to
You
get
got
it
a own
out.
irrigation system.
It's literally about $35 to $40, so.
This follows in the precedent already set.
Correct,
does it?
yes, it does.
Over son,
just
we
for
pay
one,
it
not-
with his allowance.
Just for sure credit, that's correct.
So
She realizes off the bat she would have to pay for the water as well.
no, this is a one-time deal, right?
Correct, it's a one-time deal.
So if she has another kid that opens a faucet up, and it goes for weeks.
Well, yeah, he gets penalized.
No.
It comes out of his allowance.
Pay for $35.
No, just one.
All right.
It is a one-time deal? Nobody's ever
Yes.
come back twice?
No, not the same owner.
So
Motion to
Corrected.
approve for credit approval for
I
that.
make a motion to
based on
Put your
our
credit.
precedents.
for the sewer.
Yeah, second it.
Second, all those in favor, aye. Contrary minds, nay.
Okay, thank you. Old business,
That's been a standard procedure.
yeah, actually, I just got an email this afternoon from our consultant, Dave Cricket Associates, Dave Cricket LLC. They're doing the final design. We had a meeting, it was by Zoom because not all the people from MDC could meet. So we did a meeting with the MDC financial people, the engineering people, and also their legal people. And we had our attorney and Jim, Mike, and myself, and Jim Marble, and Attorney D'Onofrio, and Kevin Delaney were involved. We talked for a while. We don't know, they're supposed to modify their MOU. We snuck in the last time a number from 60 to 75. We've told them that to use their numbers and come up with a valid number. Now, there's 2 things going on. One is the operation and maintenance. We're saying that it should be close to the 75%. The other portion of this is a project that's almost $3.2 million at this point in time. We'd still like them to have 75% now. However, if they come up with different numbers, we want to see it. But I've used their numbers, and I think that and I've driven over in that area, Newington and Rocky Hill, just to get a flavor of it. we have a very small footprint there. We only have Raleigh Street, a portion of Berlin Street, a portion of Episcopal Road, a portion of Deming Road that actually go into this pump station. They have hundreds of customers in Newington, hundreds of customers in Rock Hill, with a total of almost 1,200 customers to our around 100 to 200 customers. So there's a disparity. So we think that our number of their percentage should be higher. So we're still waiting for their markup of the MOU, and they had reviewed our consultants' design standards, and they had some modifications to that. We think that that's been rectified. He sent me the revisions today. I'll take a look at that. Should be done. So now the question becomes up. We would like to go to bid on this project, probably within. And here's the issue with the bid. As soon as we go to issue with the bid, when the bid comes back, most bid holders would then hold it for like 60 days. So we would then have to have a commitment to get this done. Now, we're actually going to be funding the project, and then MDC will be reimbursed semi-annually for their share in a 5-year period. For the 5-year period, they will be paying back the entire thing. So we're hopeful that that'll be finalized within the next month. August, I'm hoping.
So when do you think it's gonna go to bid?
I'm hoping September and August. If what I reviewed today or tomorrow looks good, we could probably be looking sometime in August to put the dates together for the actual bid notification. Now, the last financial revision, which was built on 2023 numbers, so there was a little bit of flexibility there, show that this project's going to be rounded to 3.2. Now, our foreman, Mike Personowski, on the other hand, as you know, they have to go down there almost 8 to 9 times a month to go into the pit to unclog the 3 pumps that they have there. And that's a dangerous condition because it's a confined space. So what he's jerry-rigged it, and you probably want to go by and see it, is a bypass. He was able to put a submersible pump that we will, when we're done with it temporarily, we'll use this pump over at Middletown Road because it's for that same size and design. And then what it does is bypasses into another pipe that goes directly across into the trunk line over on the other side of the Athabasca River. It's been working. So because he's had it in for the whole month, they've only gone down there once for the entire month. To me, that's a big improvement. So we're happy to see that.
It's not getting clogged up.
Well, it's getting clogged up, but the thing is, not as frequent. Not as frequently, and it seems to work.
Bypassing enough to, the clog actually.
The pump is a pumper where it macerates the material as well, and it seems to work very fine. So
Right.
it's working out pretty good. So far so good. So hopefully, even if it reduces it 2 or 3 times, it's worth it. So anyway, that's the MDC issue. Hopefully, we'll have more to bring up in September. Let you know where we go with that. The last item, and I think
Which is new.
well, I still have to do this in executive session because I really won't give you a quick update. It's not much, but it really should do it in executive session.
So, okay, so
And I guess we could do just continue
this will be a regular meeting. And go to executive session.
well, no, what do you call it?
7:50.
Recording. You don't have to record it, right?
I just need to move this session.
This is short because it's not.
Is
much.
there a motion to go
Motion to go to executive session and stop the
at
recording.
7:50 and inviting me to stay? Is there a motion?
I make the motion, go to executive session.
Executive session, by Lisa.
Second.
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 All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded?
7:50.
So 7:50. Regular meeting. To executive session or stop. And then just
Motion to come back into
back into the
Session.
regular session
7:58.
and a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Make the motion to return. Second it.
All in favor, aye.
And-
Motion to adjourn regular session.
I second it.
Second. Okay. Thank you.
And
All in
word.
favor, aye, aye.
That was good. Yeah. couple months there.
Missed all the music.
Yeah,